Show the morning dew, and today we'll be looking at one issue that is right on now. The federal government is saying that the idea to tame the terrorists is to ban Okada, ban mining activities in some parts of the country. But that of Okada or motorcycle will be an entire nation. That means there will be none. So we'll be looking at the implication of this ban should the federal government carry out this threat to Okada riders. And we have a guest with us today to discuss this with us. Is a security expert and a commentator on social public issues affecting the country. We have with us Lukman and Nito. Mr. Lukman, welcome to the show. Now, it is no longer news that the federal government is proposing a total ban on Okada nationwide, and then we know that mining is not in every part of the country, but we know that some parts of the country is doing that. What, in your opinion, you think will be a solution to this should they carry out these threats?
Security threats, there are a lot of issues related and associated with motorcycles. But we should not completely rule out the fact that all these issues we have are results of inadequacies in documenting who comes in, what goes out, who goes there, or who comes here. And all those metrics are the ones now affecting what we are seeing. If we look back into history, just like how it happened in Lagos, fine, there was a ban, but it was a ban on a specific set, a set that was not well documented. And they maintained the other motorcycles which were on commercial operators as dispatch riders, because those ones could be traced, they could be tracked. We could say who is here, who is on this bike, who goes here, and who goes there. And that's the first part I want the government to look at much more seriously. We also understand that mining in Nigeria is usually not in the legal sector. Majority of mining that goes on in Nigeria is in the legal sector. And people don't go to mine where they don't see wealth. So when you see people mining, most likely they've seen gold, they've seen the very precious jewelry in that environment, and they say, oh, this thing is much in this area. And I'll not rule out the fact that it has been on for years. A lot of people are going to mining thinking they don't know the value. Eventually, looking at it back and forth, if I look at that of motorcycles, I look at the economic implication costs. We have to understand that these cyclists are also Nigerians, or many of them are Nigerians. Many of them are surviving on this. Apart from the cyclists themselves, or the motorcyclists themselves, we have to look at those who are also importing those goods, because that is why every policy should not be rushed into. If we just put a total ban right now, some people already have 2,000 pieces in their store. Some people have more than that. Some people have more than that quantity on the sea coming in. So what do we ask them to do to it? So I think that there is a need for the government to look critically into how do we want to document even the bikes that are around. Do we want to give them a uniform color like the buses? So if we are looking at the case of Media and we said, okay, some of them came in on bike, then we'll say, is it our state color or our country color is the bike we saw? Or they are unidentified bikes, because all those things are things we need to put in place. I could recall there was a time, I think around in India, they had security issues with cars, and because of that, the country came up with a state color, that in this state, this is the color of cars we have here. So when a car crosses from Ogun to Lagos, we know that this car is from Ogun to Lagos. So if anything happens within the territory of the range where the car is parked, we can track everybody. We know the cars that are here, we know who comes in, we know who goes out. And those are some of those things we need to look critically at, and not just say we ban Okada. Because if we just ban motorcycles, these terrorists, in quotes, don't use only motorcycles. In the past, we've seen them use speedboats. In the past, we've seen them use vehicles, not just cars, even SUVs, even Hilux vans and the likes. So do we want to begin to ban every means we feel we saw them use without considering how we document all those things properly so that we can know if there is any strange entity in our midst? And I think that is what we should focus more on than just say we are rushing or want to put up a ban on these motorcycles. It might be a wrong decision because I would say Nigeria with a population of 200 million people will have about 500,000 bikes in circulation presently, if I'm not wrong. And I would say we will still have another 500,000 in store or in stock, which are about to come to markets. And we have to also consider those who are trading in those things. Would we say they have wasted their investments? Would we ask them to start relocating their bikes out of Nigeria to Ghana because of an issue we could resolve? So many other countries have ways they manage bikes, and I think we should look more into effective way of managing the bike actions and not just using one activity to put up a straight jacket on everybody. It's not going to be the best.
Okay. Now, still on the issue of illegal mining, the government also proposes to place a ban on that. But the Nigerian Mining and Minerals and Mining Act of 2007, stipulates that the federal government has deregulated that industry and actually devolves powers to local governments through the states to put a crackdown on illegal mining activities. And statistics show us that in that sector, especially in the northern states between Katsina, Kebbi, Nasarawa, Plateau, and some of those states, Kaduna, I believe also, that there are over 2 million people involved in that, illegal trade. Now, what is it that has made, state governments, local governments, not to have been able to apprehend those people? Because even the government saying that they will ban, this thing is a power that already resides with the states and local governments. So how come it hasn't been effective by the states and local governments to crack down on those miners?
It hasn't been effective because of all of us. When I say all of us, the local governments, the representatives and their agencies, the state governments, and the federal government agencies. When I say the federal government agencies now, I will refer more to the security agencies. When things are banned, just like bikes were banned in Lagos, it is the responsibility of these agencies to effect implementation of these laws. If these implementations are not properly done, we eventually see a situation where what was banned yesterday will be found on the road today, we will come back tomorrow to ban it again, we find it on the road the subsequent day, and like that. So, and that is just what is really happening. On the part of the local governments, they have refused to understand that mining should be a source of revenue for them. So because they've been unable to tap into those revenue, they are still seeing need, or they are seeing no need to put more effort on implementing a restriction where there needs to be a restriction, a regulation where there needs to be a regulation, and if possible where they need to set up industries around it, where there needs to be industries set up around it. It is only when they see the light that yes, there is money here. But I really don't understand how our representatives at times don't understand that, we have gold in my community. I am in charge of the gold. At least I have a percentage of whatever is being extracted as revenue. So if I do this to generate revenue, I am also empowering my local government to as well do a lot of other things in terms of infrastructure and like. But when we begin to shy away from things that would earn the local government money, that will earn us as a people money, and we feel just give me a token from my pockets, or we feel let me just leave them, they've been doing it like that, let them just be doing it like that, we'll be the one to suffer it to the long run. And by the time we'll be waking up in reality to say, okay, let us go into that sector, we might be getting there when it is too late. When 50, 70, 80% of what we have are gone and unaccounted for. So mining, all those things that are mineable, they are not only in the north. Illegal mining also goes on in the south. I'm very sure of that. I know states where we have minerals and we see all those things go on illegally. But just the inability of both parties, or the three parties, the federal, the state, and the local government, to tap into it. I I am always very sure of Lagos State. If Lagos State has an avenue to something like that, they will just calculate front and back. Oh, this is what it will make for us in the state. And you just that the state will just come up with 1 to 3 laws and they just delve into that end. And that is how I feel other states should begin to think so that they can generate more revenue, except we just want to keep borrowing loans to finance what is not financeable.
Ghana was first called the Gold Coast because they have abundance of gold in that country. Now the country made use of it to establish what they established. Nigeria, like you're saying, several parts of this country has these mineral resources that they can also help in financing the country. But our concentration is being on oil, which is found in the south. And then in the south, like you just mentioned, in the north, people can say, okay, I have gold in this place, so let me bring it out and sell, make money for myself. But in the south, anything that has to do with oil or petroleum is owned by the government, by the federal government, dictating to those. And that's the reason people are saying resource control. Now, if the government has focused their attention the same way they focus on oil, perhaps we will not be going through this idea of coming out today to say, because they are terrorism, that's why we want to ban mining. What do you think the federal government could really do to see to it the same way they see to oil in the south?
Well, for the federal government, if we want the federal government to come fully into this, that means we want the federal government to invoke the power it has given to the local governments. And in that way, we say, okay, the federal government can come into it. But even if the federal government is trying to invoke the powers it has given to the local governments, if the respective agencies are not doing what they ought to do, we will still get the same results we are getting today. Because I know there is a federal agency that manages mining or regulates the mining industry. If that agency had been able to just engage more with local governments, especially in places where they know the illegal mining of X, Y, and Z is going on there, there are a lot of precious stones around the country. There are a lot of precious metals around the country. There are a lot of precious things that people go and mine illegally. But if you can bring the respective heads of those places on board, the local government heads and some of the executives, and engage them on reasons why these things can turn around their local governments, I want to believe that those people will be able to come up with a more stringent measure to see how they will regulate this industry and to see how the country will benefit from this particular industry. It will not be gainsaying to say federal government will do it. It will not be effective. Because the first thing you just come to see is the federal government coming into it is for the federal government to say, okay, we are doing this. The next thing, they have to set up infrastructures in every place. So when they start talking about setting up this, setting up that, you see that we will still have to even go into borrowing, into more loans, before we go into how we want to reap from it. While at the local government level, they will have XYZ facilities or infrastructures that they could easily adapt. Okay, we are using this for this SPA, and it has become unusable because that thing was not applicable. Okay, let us now convert it into this. And that way, I feel the local government will be much more effective in managing the mining sector. If, in quotes, they understand the benefit or the immense benefit that it means for them to develop their communities.
You know why I asked you this question? Sorry, 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Question he said. Now, you mentioned that the federal government should not be actively involved, but security challenges that have been arising, especially in this minerals and mining sector, shows that the federal government presence is needed largely, especially when it comes to security. Now, a lot of these people, especially, they're not just illegal miners. We see a lot of banditry and things, other nefarious activities going on there. And most of these people, they will mine these things, and when they get the resources, they exchange them for weapons. Now, are the state governments that you're advocating for to take control of these things, are they in a better position to actually give out that kind of manpower, that kind of security, that kind of defense needed to curb these terrorist activities?
The fact is, by law, the state governors are the chief security officers of their states. The state governors are members of the police council. But in most cases, or from what I have realized out of my study, is that the state governors are not taking in charge of that role. And that is why we keep shouting too much on the federal. Truly, the federal is in charge of recruitment, but the state can still do a lot of other things. And it is where you support these agencies that you see these agencies work better. I could remember some years back, almost a decade now, I think during the time of Governor Fashola, when they realized the state needed some facilities, some little arms. Don't let me use what little arms. Needed more arms and some facilities for the security agencies. And those things were not in the purview of the state to purchase. The state approached the federal government. We want to purchase XYZ for our police. You know, it is now for the same central body. We want to get XYZ for our police. What we just need from you is an approval to be able to purchase it. And the federal government did. So the investment of the state in these security agencies, the truth is, will make them have more grip. Will make the governors have more grip. When the CP of the state understands that every year, if the governor of the state, who is the chief security officer, is ready to liaise with the state to provide more facilities, to provide more enabling environment, I want to believe that they will get better outputs from the security agencies in the state. So I think that will be that on that.
What I wanted to add then was that now, since this country came into being, we've not seen any result from this gold mining from any parts of the country. And I also think that we could get more revenue from that if it's given to the government to control. Because I've never heard anyone saying this government of this state is fully engaged in it. All we hear is illegal miners. Illegal miners. Sometimes they die in it because they're always illegal miners. And now they're saying this because the terrorists are making advantage of it, using it to acquire more arms. Wouldn't it be better, just the way they do the petroleum industry, that government will take total control? Because these are natural resources from the country and giving it out to terrorists now. Because if the terrorists were not involved in it, I'm sure no government will talk about it. Why can't they take a total control and then let everybody see the gains from it?
Okay, the truth is, every industry or everywhere where there is money, so people are usually interested. The business community are usually interested there. The same thing, the criminal entities are also interested in that sector. So let us first look at it from that angle. If we are saying the federal government is going to charge of this, never mind I use this analogy, because I'm someone that believes very much in an economy run by the private sector. I used to say, we were given railway, what did we do to it? We were given the refineries working. What did we do to them? If we begin to point out so many things, we were given Ajauta. What is Ajauta today?
So if we give the same mining industry before 1967, it was very active.
So if we say we give XYZ to government again, we just create more problem. It's just like Lagos State also knows it is almost impossible. As much as they invest massively in the transport sector, it is impossible for them to cater effectively just for one local government in just that sector. So saying you want to give it to government 100%, it's like saying you want to create more crisis. Because no, government is only paper, by my understanding. It is the individuals and the communities that define in those offices that function. So if you want them to do the right thing, or you want the right thing to be done, if you want to franchise it to the private sector, franchise it and let the government take tax on it. In that case, the government will be doing the regulator and the tax. And then that way it might be easier for us. We are just focusing on gold. I would say there are a lot of other metals around the country that are more expensive than gold, that are much more beneficial to the economy of this country than gold, and that are being mined illegally. So if we just say let us leave them in the hands of the illegal miners, you see I said earlier that even some of those who mine these things illegally see it as a form of trade. Oh, I'm selling this thing for a token. They don't know the value of what they sell. But those who come to buy it are the ones who know the value. So when they take it across board, they take it abroad and they set it on the shelf and they refine it. They sell it in multiple of thousands of amounts they bought it from the local market here in Nigeria. And that is just what the business community are looking for, and the same thing this set of terrorists are looking for. you will not be surprised that almost every community where you have illegal mining, the people who are doing the mining are the locals. Those who we are talking of today, who are the security threat, are only coming as businessmen to come and buy it from the locals. It is very hard for you to encroach into the confines of the locals. But those locals don't know the value, and they don't even know the profile of who they are selling it to. So let's say they sell a stone worth 3 billion to someone at 200,000, and they are feeling like, yes, I need 200,000 today. And that person just knows that I only need to get it into the factory, turn it around, sell it for 3 billion, and buy house worth 3 billion. I think you get the analogy. So that's why I said, if we engage the local community, starting with the heads of these local governments, for them to know the benefit of what they have in their locality, and what that thing can turn around in their locality, I want to believe this issue of ban will not be the major issue, but we're just looking at regulation and how the economy wants to make money out of it.
Yeah.
The fact is, a lot of countries developed out of just one resources. The Dubai we shout today was just desert land. They just found one thing and they turned it towards economy. And they used that one thing to set up another industry completely. Nobody would say tourism will flourish in Dubai, in a desert land. But they just got something in the ground, use the same petroleum we have to set up the economy and divert everything to something else. If you are eating foods in Dubai today, you will feel you were planted in Dubai. Very fresh, very neat. In short, neater than what we see on our own.
We don't need to discuss that. That would mean discussing the leadership of this country. We're not on that.
Still talking about this minerals and mining sector. We still have some resources that we have abundantly in Nigeria being imported. I'm even talking about things like common salt and iron ore. We still import these things largely on a large scale. Now, these are resources that are abundant, like I said. Now, these local government people, you seem to have a better advocacy for to run things, to secure things. They have not really looked into the fact that minerals and what's it called, things related to mining can actually account for about 0.3% of what is being imputed into our GDP for our revenue to grow. Now, how can local governments take a closer look into that sector to improve these things? Because we're seeing how oil is swinging in the markets these days. How can they look forward to these resources being utilized as a hedge in case of certain dips that might just go so low in the oil and gas industry?
It will take a lot. It will take a lot of training. It will take a lot of engagement. And it will take a lot, when I use the word a lot, to make these local governments realize what they have with them. Because the fact is, they don't realize what they have. They just see it as we have stones there. They don't see it as we have precious stones. They just see it as we have hills there. They don't see it as in these hills there are things that are beneficial or really beneficial to the economy. So if we are looking at bringing the local governments on board, it is only when they know the value of what they have. It is just like inheriting a property from one's father, and you are inheriting a 5-story building. You were living at the needs when you were young. You lived in it because a bit older, but you didn't see the value of the 5-story building. You saw the receipt from your father, and it was like he bought it for 5,000 naira. It is only when someone calls your attention to it that that building is now worth 50 billion naira. And in short, the cost of rent per apartment in that building might be far more than even the cost you have on the receipt of purchase. That is when you need to look at, so this thing was this and I didn't know. How do I now explore this? It might be so funny that you have even abandoned the structure or feeling it is too big, it is too obsolete. That's why you now realize that obsolete building just needs little touching up, little titivating, like I used to say, and it becomes something that brings back good money. So they don't know the value of what they have around them, they don't know the value of what they have in their locality, they don't know what value. Even for a corrupt mind, get times 10 of what I'm getting today. Because of what he wants to get into his own pocket too, he will have to do that. But if he doesn't see the value, he doesn't know what he has in his confines, at the federal level, we'll be making laws that would not coincide with the economic realities of recent times. Most economies are moving out of petroleum. In short, we all know that electric cars are now the in thing in town. And at least I'm very sure I know at least one person in Nigeria, at least one, who is now driving an electric car. A lot of people now use hybrid cars, though many of them don't know the value or don't know how to use hybrid cars. For some hybrid cars, you just need to drive below 40 km per hour. It will stay on electric. It is when you move too fast, it will move to fuel. So even when you tell me there is fuel scarcity and I'm using hybrid, I just need to drive slowly. I'm going to my destination any time. And I'll have little or no problem. So all those things, when people begin to realize certain things, there will be a lot of change in the way we do things. And eventually, we will reap the economic benefits. The security threat, I will not see it as a good reason for us to completely ban motorcycles. I have not seen a country where it has been completely banned. In countries where it is being banned, there are different reasons for it being banned. Either you have issues of security, but not as much as this. You have issues of accidents, but in short, they were not as much as this. If they regulate that, it would not be regulated, you can now say, okay, let us move into banning it. In some places, it is not even a complete ban. It is just like this type of ban we have in Lagos. You move them from highways and keep them in the hinterlands. Where they are trying not to cooperate in the hinterlands, you squeeze them out again, so that they can at least adjust to the situation. But just coming up with a regulation that yes, everyone to throw the back of what they try as well, you want to throw everything into the bin. It is not possible. You want to say something someone bought yesterday and 500,000 is unvaluable again today just because of the new regulation. And that's the way we should not watch into the regulations. If we had said we'll be banning this thing in the next 2 years, investment in that direction would naturally just But now you have not said you are banning it in the next 2 years. Businessmen are still bringing it in actively, and you want to ban it at that time. You just want to create more crisis for the economy, and that is how I see it.
The Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice said the reason for the ban is to cut short the supplies of logistics to these terrorists. And some people are saying that if you go to Rivers State, for instance, my state, we've never heard of terrorists. We could have kidnappers, and we can deal with that. Now, if you go to Lagos State as it is today, you can't hardly will hear about terrorists. They might also have kidnappers trailing into Lagos State, but they can deal with that. Now, where we have terrorists are majorly in the north. So a ban in some states would have been possible, and not a total ban in the entire country as it is, because the Okadas in Lagos, they know the routes to take, more so now that we have some bans on them too. And in the other states in the south, they don't have that. Now, if you go to the southeast, what they have is unknown gunmen. They've never described them as terrorists. So planning a total ban will disrupt the economic flow of those states. And someone says that that will negate, it will destroy first the economy of the people. Two, it will disrupt homes and change them into more criminals. What's your take on that?
When we relate the banning of motorcycles to hindering logistics of the terrorists, I will just say it is not an effective decision. Because the logistics of the terrorists, it is not only motorcycles. They use cars as well. They use off-road vehicles as well. They use almost every type of cars that you can imagine. I would say a bag of rice, using 300 bags to move 300 bags of rice is so uneasy, like using a truck to move 500 bags of rice. And I want to believe strongly that logistics to these people, when we talk in terms of cost logistics, that makes the terrorism thrive is food. If we can block their means of getting food, you will come to realize that it is not the ban of motorcycles. We just need good intelligence. Okay, this is where they are getting food from. This is the means of transporting that food. I know the terrorist group. I am not saying as a proposition. I know they will not mistakenly carry 300 bags of rice on 300 motorcycles and drive on the road. especially in desert sand. Any small slip might mean you fall down.
Okay, now for these things, you just proposition like a food blockade for this terrorists. But besides, we all know that food supplies for everybody comes in through the same route. You cannot decipher if this is going to a terrorist camp or if this is going to the open market for sale. So how effective is this going to be? Because it's like taking us back to shortly during the pandemic period when borders were locked and food crisis, economic crisis. So how effective and how workable can this be?
See, it's better you have a minor food crisis than having a major food crisis. I'm using the analogy of minor and major now because we are looking back at the COVID era. That was a minor food crisis. If a major food crisis eventually happens, the food will be in the hands of the terrorists. The terrorists will be the one dictating who gets food. And just because of who gets food, I am sure a lot of governors will naturally just surrender their states for their people to get food. But if we can hold down the supplies of these people by just proper tracking, if these containers are moving out of this place to the next location, we should know where it is going precisely. When it gets there, we should be sure that that container left here with 500 bags and arrive at its destination with 500 bags, and not leaving here with 500 bags and arriving at its destination with 100 bags. They must account for that 400 bags. So we just need to increase or improve regulation and share intelligence rightly. We will know when things are diverted. If you own a company, especially people in the private sector, they do all this serious monitoring, else everything will go into the drain. If the government can do its own part of monitoring, I will tell you that if food will be escaping to the terrorists, it will be very insignificant. And as insignificant as it will be, it will even be trackable. Because we will begin to see trends. When trends are irregular, you know these trends are irregular. In a community of 300 people, they are buying 300 bags of rice. You understand that trend is irregular. You mean a person is buying a bag of rice in that community, or you want to claim that a person consumes in 1 week a bag of rice in that community. So once we can track all these illegal or irregular trends, we can track the security issues around it, and also nip the bud, everything in the bud. So I feel that there is a lot on the part of the government, there is a lot on the part of the people as well. People need to share the right intelligence. I keep saying that almost every time. People need to say when they see what is abnormal. I remember there was a kidnap case some years back that was unraveled somewhere around Ogun State. The kidnap was in Lagos and the kidnapped victims were taken to Ogun State. The only thing the community just did was to help share intelligence. They realized in the night, this is an uncompleted building. In the night, a jeep comes into this place in the night and goes out in the night. Comes in the night, no car comes in during the day, but it's usually in the night. No, why would this type of expensive jeep come here in the night? Do you mean we have one very rich man who is coming to hide in our community? And they call the community here, and the community here just inform the police that we have one irregular trend here. This is what we noticed, and that is why we as a people should also be vigilant. Just that what they noticed was, okay, let us wait for that van to come in the night. It came in the night and it was watching.
Benito, let's take a break. When we come back, we continue. So. Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, we're still looking at the proposed ban on motorcycle or Okada in Nigeria and mining activities by the federal government. We're looking at the implications of that, and we're still with Anyton right here with us. Now, before we went on that break, I was about to ask you something. These terrorists are not as trained as our Nigerian military men and all the forces in the country.
Yet the government seems to get confused when it comes to that. Now, because of the activities, the government is saying that will put a ban on Okada and mining activities. Are you thinking that this government is not seeing this as a total slap on their quality? Because this is the same country that have sent people out to fight ECOMOG and got results. Send people to some other country on peacekeeping, and then you hear Nigeria being the first. And dealing with a ragtag group, because it started like that in Borno State as a ragtag group, and up till now they cannot confront them. And it got to the point that the people, because with this ban, there could be time the federal government will go to banning even trekking if they cannot solve this. Don't you think that this is a big slap on the military might of the country?
I don't want to use the word a big slap on the military might. Rather, I want to say our men in uniform have not done enough. Because if they've done enough, we will not be where we are today. At times, I also don't advocate or I also don't support the system. When I say the system now, I mean our men in uniform, that they don't have enough logistics, they don't have enough equipment. There are also people who live within our communities. There are also people who have family members within our communities. So if we don't get intelligence from the right source, and I know my brother lives in Ogun State, in a particular community, I should make it a point of duty to call that my brother once in a week. Like, what do you think can be a threat here? Because it's also a threat to my job. If a mother does not tell me what is a fact, and an incident now happens, and the man is not calling me, I come by and say, sorry, I've been calling you all these days. You're not giving me the right information. You should make everybody understand that we don't have a goal in security. But they've not done it enough. Even force-wise, everything is not force, everything is not show of force. If we ask them to continue to do show of force, we continue to see show of force. But what the crimes that are happening behind the scene will continue to happen. A lot of crimes have been underreported. I can't count the number of reports I get on a daily basis. Mr. A is missing. Mr. B, this happened to Mr. B. This happened to Mr. C. But as the media brought it forward, to let people know that this, and this. There are a lot of other serious issues we even have that are killing people far on a daily basis, more than these incidences that comes up once in a while. But it is the way we manage these things in recent times that will determine how we manage a larger or more dangerous world. So when we use a lukewarm attitude to manage those other things, we will come back to security also and we use lukewarm attitude to manage it. So I would not just want to say we give more guns to people, we give more licenses out, and we give them more cars and logistics to the police, and there is no intelligence. Then everything is just zero. It's just like wasted resources.
Okay, like the federal government, through the president, said that he has expended too much on defense by, the budgetary allocation. Now, this proposed ban on mining and commercial, in fact, it's not even stated that it's commercial bikes that are to be banned. So, there's no bikes for personal uses, business dispatches, and all that. Also, look to be banned from because of this law. So now, do you think the government has really taken into cognizance the far-reaching implications that this might cause? Because we know that some of these, when in the mining industry, most of these illegal miners, they use women and children, girls that they kidnap to perform those activities. Has the government seen that probably more schools can be attacked or more communities, women will be taken, more abductions across all the transport lines? So do you think the government has really taken into cognizance the far-reaching implications of banning bikes, stopping mining activities, the economic problem it's going to bring on people, the hardship it's going to bring on people via transport and all that? Do you think the government has really
we are proposing this, not that we woke up to hear that this has been banned, effective from this date. The proposition was last Thursday. If it was a complete ban, it would have been a statement with effective from this date. So when it becomes effective from this date, then we can now say it is a law. It is not yet a law. It is an ongoing discussion, and I know for them to have come public to make that proposition, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and so many other entities or stakeholders in the industry would have moved fast into engagements with the government agencies or the government private. They all understand the economic implications, and we all understand that these things have an effect on the people, not just on the security of the people. I would say the effect on the people is far, far reaching than even on the security of one or two or three places. And so a law that applies to some localities might not be a general law. Just like we say in community policing, there is no general rule. You have to be specific, look at the peculiarities of every community, you develop a strategy based on the peculiarities of that community. You don't develop a general rule that will eventually cause more harm than good. But the peculiarities will make us know, okay, in this place, this is what we work here. In this place, this is what we work here. In Lagos, when we realized, okay, we have more issues of accidents on Okada on a daily basis, or in a year, we realized we are having up to 2,000 incidences of motorcycles. Oh, we see these incidences are on a very high rise. Okay, in that 1 year, we looked at it on the security angle. Oh, we are having about 3,000 stealing or thefts from the same means. Okay, the same this thing is becoming a threat. Okay, what do we do to regulate the industry? Never be surprised that in the nearest future, if we still continue to see this industry as a threat, but we still see the reasons to maintain some part of that industry, those set of bikes you have seen in Lagos might come up with a uniform color. So we know that, okay, in mainland local governments we have blue, in Yaba we have red, in this we have this. So if a bike is crossing from here to here, we know what has happened. So if we realize the theft or robbery is more in the mainland local government, we know that it is those green bikes that are the perpetrators of the crime. They will know where we are really looking at. Not that we will assume someone drove from Okada and came to perpetrate a crime in mainland and ran back to Okada and cannot be moved. So all those things, there are things government must continue to look at easy ways to make regulations that will be specific to different communities. Okay, you don't cross community, bikes stay within your community. So just like if you go to the railway, all bikes you see in the railway, the bike men have a vest.
But do you think that is foolproof, even if, let's say, color codes or kind of separations are given to them? People can easily beat those things, like maybe changing the color of a bike or maybe a certain kind of specialized plate number.
The fact is, it is going to be very effective. You will not be surprised that as much as you have a lot of cars or a lot of buses pass through the bus stop closest to you, that those boys who we see as tax collectors in Lagos, those boys of people like you can identify almost every driver. Even they can tag the driver with the bus. They can see a bus coming and tell you, okay, that's the person driving.
Let me also, you said.
So if such is going on and they see a strange face and something happens, we will track that strange face. It will be very easy to track the strange face. If we don't have any strange face, then we will know that it is amongst our people here. Then we will look inward properly. So it makes intelligence gathering much more easier when you can tag things to places.
Anytime you said you were glad that that was just a mere proposal. But that happened after the security meeting with the president. And that was before the threat to the president and then governors. If that could happen before that threat, don't you think that they can come up with this proposal? And understanding that we are going into elections, if the proposal is carried out, let's say around October, and Okada cannot move, many people cannot move, an election is coming,
and you have your center far away from home, and you intend that early in the morning you could ride your Okada to that place, don't you think that there may be problem with elections coming up in 2023?
Don't let me just link motorcycles to elections. Because on election days, cars are not allowed to move, except you're on election duty. Not to say motorcycles, they are not allowed to move. You are advised.
They are given time from 6, you can move from your house from 5:30 to your location, wherever you have your center. And it takes some distance.
You know, I would say you are talking about that time. I would say they were given time, a particular time in the past. That time is not a law. A new regulation can come up tomorrow morning that from 12 midnight till the next 12 midnight of the election, you can't move. This way.
Campaign. Some people use Okada to campaign.
By law, campaign ends 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah, but during campaign, you see people, because some also was saying that if you go to the north now, what they use in campaigning most, the youth, is this bike. And there was a scene in Sokoto State where all the Okadas had time to wear a badge of a particular party. And it was after that that we had this proposal for a ban. Some people are insinuating that this could have something to do with election and electioneering campaign. In your assessment as a security expert, do you think that could be one of the reasons for this ban? Because then we never heard that they were flogging our fellow Nigerians in the forests where they are kept, or that there was a threat to the presidency and some governors. Now that we have all this, now put them together, don't you think that the government may yield to the idea of this ban?
I don't want to believe the government will use the idea of this ban because it will be counterproductive. It will be very, very counterproductive. If we look at it from a narrow perspective, particularly from the fact that they want to announce a ban today, they will try to effect the ban, and they will lift the ban as a criteria for support for the next election. I'll say that you're looking at it from a narrow perspective. But if we want to look at it from the main perspective, which is the broad perspective, just like I said, since that pronouncement or that press statement came out last week, a lot of stakeholders in the industry have started running helter skelter. And they will not wait for the government to mistakenly announce a date before very serious engagement goes on behind the scene. So it will not be surprising that the 3 ministers who participated in that press conference might not have been able to sleep within that last week. And today, because they'll be getting calls from their friends and allies who are investing in that industry that come and let us gather a way that we can gather places that can identify it. Just like the bank was being supposed to finance the let us talk with them. Let us have the place. And for what I understand what the entails, you know that everything you have to do with the government, it's an act that you just start on. So if you do anything, you want to get anything, you escape. When you register a car today, and the car goes to which traffic light at one place in Lagos, and you think you've escaped, your name will be used to pick you out. You are the one that registered the car. So you must not get that ice. So those are the type of things. That's why I said we just need to strengthen regulation to be much more innovative about how we track things. Once we can track those things, there is no country in the world that is completely free of crime. But at least we will have those crimes at the most minimal level. We will have crimes that, upon happening of the crime, we can almost spot how it happened, who and the strangers in the vicinity that needs to be checked on, and who can be associated.
Anytime, I want you to be clear. I want you to be clear on this. See.
One more thing for me before you goes on. Now, the mining activities, like I've been hankering on, I think I have particular interest in that. So that I am a miner.
No, we know.
No, we know. It's quite a thriving industry. industry, as low as the statistics say, it's quite thriving. Now, in that industry, we see that it's not just dependent on people going there. It's spread like a regular business. It depends on there's dependency on transportation, the infrastructure, security, and all that. One of the measures you proposed, because the government trying to put up this law, is to stem down illegal activities. Now, one of the measures you proposed is food blockade. Now, let's now fuse something like this bike issue and mining activities. Is that a way that the government can say maybe around areas where illegal mining takes place, can we totally put a ban to maybe motorcycles? Because that seems to be the most convenient way to move around in Nigeria because of bad roads and all that. So, do you foresee that kind of thing happening as an implication, that in those areas maybe there will not be a lot of motorcycles?
For me, I would say it is not the right decision, because for those who understand how this trade goes on, in most cases, motorcycles are not the means of transportation for those people. Okay, let me give an instance. I live in Igbo community. In Igbo community, we just go to that junction to mine. We might spend 5 days to mine. Whatever we get in 5 days, I'm not doing more than mine illegally. 50 of us did. A businessman just came in his car. He will not come in the bike. Buys mine off, buys everybody's own off. We all feel we have big money. And so. Goes to refine, multiply the profits by 1,000. Uses it to buy arms, import arms illegally. On our own hand, we did a business. If you buy motorcycles in my government, it makes almost no difference to me. Some of them, they don't even have a motorcycle. Some of those people we are saying they do the mining, just have a bicycle. Some of them just trek to the place, in and out. So if we are now associating it with motorcycles, the case of motorcycle came into all this just because motorcycles were seen as part of the means of transportation for Kuje prison. When the airport in, I think, Kaduna was also attacked, motorcycles were seen as part of it. And in most cases, when the military men are in engagement with most of these bandit groups, motorcycles are part of what they recover. But they can never say that it's only motorcycles that we recovered when we say means of transportation.
No, Jennifer said something. She said because of the bad roads that we see. Now, I was thinking that.
These people use very good cars that focus with the bad roads.
But they cannot use that car on. Even the yes.
You will see that.
Because we see a lot of them when they go to attack, they carry
RPGs on SUVs, on
So how come the
off-road
government
vehicles,
is not even
and
saying we will put a ban on those kind of vehicles?
You know, one of those things that we've not done effectively as a country is when we tend to see such, and today we burst into this group, we saw this particular SUV, we destroyed it. No matter how good your weapon is to destroy this SUV, you will just demobilize it. If you still open the bonnet, you can see the engine number. If you take the engine number into VIS, you can track it. You will know if it is registered in Nigeria or not. If it's not registered in Nigeria, forward it to Interpol. Interpol will forward it amongst their network. You will know the country it was registered in. So we will know where to go.
And into have you lived in the north?
I have lived in it.
Now, if you lived in the north within this period that we have bandit. Yes, if you lived in the north within this period that we have banditry and terrorism, you will discover that the only effective means of transportation by this group is the bike. You see about thousands coming together, and there will be no need to confront them. Yes, yes, yes. was so the ban could work in the north. Now divide the country into two. If we do not think ethnicity, the ban could work in the north, because if you go to Sokoto, if you go to Katsina, if you go to Zamfara, even the state of the president, it's not safe. Each time they come in thousands riding Okada straight to where they're going and execute whatever they intended to and go away. So the ban could work there. But spreading it across the nation is what people are looking at. The implication is that, yes, the implication here is that they don't have terrorism working hard here, but it is working in the north. So why don't you concentrate on some of these states that are prone to that than making a nationwide ban?
Let me pick two security situation analysis, very similar cases. Let me put in quotes that both groups, are semi-terrorist groups. The group operating in the north using motorcycles, and the group operating in the southeast using vans or using cars. I think you get the two groups.
Yes.
Now. I'm bringing in unknown gunmen
and terrorists.
and terrorists in the north. If I still want to bring in another group, I will see the group who were patrolling the seas of the southern region of the country. Every of them have their own means of transportation. If we now, because of one person, say we want to draw a line on that means of transportation, we eventually kill the livelihood of so many people who are not even.
So are you suggesting the ban should be on the north?
I am not suggesting that the ban should be on the north. I am rather suggesting that our men in uniform do more. 300 motorcycles cannot head from Maryland down to Jibo without the security, the policemen, and other security agencies realizing that this train is not normal. It's just like 300 people moving in one direction. You understand that you will even be curious if you are passing by. Who are these people moving in this direction? So if we share intelligence rightly and we use this intelligence rightly, they will not escape. They will not get to their destination, not to say get back to their source. At the point of convergence, we would have discovered that this mass, there is something wrong with this number.
Because this involves security.
Yes.
In less than 10 seconds, what do you suggest the federal government could do?
There is need for more regulation and more enlightenment. I feel if we enlighten the agencies or the local government on the benefits of these resources in their localities, and we can regulate every other sector well, I feel we have very little security threats around the country.
So, we've been looking at the proposed ban on Okada and mining activities by the federal government, and Anita has been here with us trying to dissect what the feelings of the people will look like if they hear it.
Anita, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you very much.
We do hope that next time when we call you, you'll be right here.
Thank you.
Viewers at home, you also have to think about it. If the ban will be good for everyone, if it's not, you can suggest to your social media platform and tell the government what to do. Some situation. It is wrong that our country is every day being invaded by terrorists. But a total ban on Okada, which to some extent is a means of livelihood to some people and means of transportation to a lot of us. That ban is what we're thinking.
All right. Exactly the same thoughts, and like you said, we all have a role to play. We have means through our legislators and representatives to be able to share our thoughts and tell them that, okay, since you're representing my zone or unit or constituency, this is what we would like you to do, so that the government can hear our voice collectively as a people. But I guess that's how we wrap it up this morning.
All right, this is where we call it a wrap, like musicians will say. This is where we wrap it up for today. But don't forget, we'll be right here tomorrow, same time, to give you another of our gist.
Okay, don't forget to download our app from the Google Play Store, of course. At SuperScreen, you can alternatively download the Avo app. Channel 110 is where you get SuperScreen to have with you on the go for refreshing news and other great content. And you can send us your own comments about this show, what you think, and all other shows across our social media platforms. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at SuperScreenNG. On Twitter, it's at SuperScreenTVNG. And you can rewatch this show and all the fab content on YouTube at SuperScreen. And yeah, from me, Jennifer, do you have a lot?
And as we finally take a leave, let me greet those behind the scene. From the MCR, we have Tayo and Joe. Behind the cameras, we have Ahmed and, of course, Favor. Not forgetting our producer, Gabriel Jude, and our executive producer, Dickin Ike Osazuo. Thanks for being with us today. See you tomorrow. I'm Tilio.